I got to play a game. Well, I actually watched more of this than actually played it, and it's not quite as involved as your game, which is a game that you can continue playing. But I was always a fan of full motion video games, even way back in the day when you had like the Panasonic uh, consoles, and you had some of that in like PlayStation, even though most of the time it was only like a little bit of full motion video. But like on PC, you actually had a couple. I remember playing the X-Files full motion video game. And it was cool because they actually used the real actors. So that was cool. But usually the people who were like supposed to get killed or something were like, you could tell the difference between the two. But I was always a fan of that. I just thought it was another type of game that you could enjoy, especially one where you're watching more than interacting. And it's funny because in Japan, there's a lot more games where you hardly do anything. It might be like click here, answer this, do that. And I remember there was a person talking about how in America, most people want action. They need to feel like they're actually controlling everything. So you see less and less of it. Maybe that's why full motion games didn't do that great. Or maybe it's because some of them look cheesy, because there's some that the acting is so bad. And then especially when they have to do graphics or stuff, it's like there's like a list of like some really, really bad full motion video games.
What was, now that you say that, like was it Under a Killing Moon? I think was one that I used to love playing. It was like one of those Tex Murphy like cop drama.
Oh yeah,
kind of thing. Remember those? Oh man, those are yeah, cheesy acting but really good games though.
Yeah, and the things like even stuff like the game that you played, like I forgot the one, Wild Bill or something with the shooting. That those were popular for a while.
Oh yeah.
Where you would shoot somebody and with the light gun, and then if you missed, there'd be like a little scene. Or what was the other one? Oh, they had cops where you're like going like along on the ride with cops, and then you're there shooting and stuff like that. So I mean, there's been a lot of different games out there. So we have a new game that came out that I got to see called Late Shift. And it's really cool because this is like new version. It's kind of like, I'm not gonna say like Telltale, because Telltale is, you have much more freedom and you can do actions and moves in it. In Late Shift, this takes place in London, and you can tell right away, like the voices you hear, like French accents, English accents, German accents, but it looks really good. So when you're watching it, even from the beginning, it looks like good production. It doesn't look cheap. They have fancy cars and sexy women, and you're going out, and the premise of it is you work as like a car park attendant. You're just a guy sitting in a booth watching fancy cars, people that park in this building. And apparently you're kind of smart. You're good at making decisions, seeing the probabilities, the percentages of when things go down, because they even show that because you're like studying from a book. And you get caught up in a heist that you didn't want to be in, but something happens in the heist. Of course, you could probably guess it goes wrong, and you have to get yourself out of it. And what's cool about this is it's simplistic, but it does it well. Like when you watch it, like I watched just like one of the endings. There's up to 7 different endings. Some bad, some good, and of course there's a best and worst. And when you just watch it, it's interesting enough. It's not that long. I'd say maybe 30, 40 minutes if you do like the maximum amount of scenes. And you only have basically 2 choices. It'll be different things, but you have 2 choices. So it'll start off with a nice, good intro. You get introduced to it, but then it'll be simple things like someone will ask you, do something for me. And you may think to yourself, okay, well, I won't do it. Or you want to be a good guy, or you want to be lawful. But then later on in the game, you'll find out that if maybe you didn't help this person, so they don't want to help you when you need it. And it's really cool because it's always only 2 choices, so it's not difficult, but you have to be pretty quick with it. So it might be like, someone tells you, hey, take me here. And it's like, do you try to run away, or do you do what they say? A lot of it is if you're going to go along with the heist, or you're starting to fight against the heist. But then after that, it gets even more complicated because it kind of, slowly introduces you to it. So it's not like super, super complicated choices. At first, it's really simple to get you used to the timing, how long you have, because you only have a few seconds. Later on, there's big things. It's not, one of the things that's really cool about this game is that I play a lot of these games where you have choices. A lot of them aren't what you would think. Like you think, oh, this choice sounds like it's going to work. Because in game world, in movie world, it'll work out. And it's like, no, sometimes you got to do something else. There's even points where you're like, where do I go? Do I go to this location because I think it might be there? Or do I go to this location? And that will totally change the game. Now, as far as the ending, there's really only about 4 specific video-wise endings because I actually watched all of them. And you get to the point where some of the final ones, the ending is the same. But there's different ways to get there. And when you watch the different videos, that's why I said the lengths can be different between if you do this, you go to a whole nother location, and there may be much more video and scenes than if you go this way, and then it's a much quicker path to whatever eventual ending you get. And like I said, the acting's pretty good. You know, look, I'm sure people critique it and say, oh, this person didn't act that well. But you got to put in as far as games. Like, it looks like something that could have been like a mini movie or something. And it's fun to play. It's only $12.99 on Steam. I mean, why not check it out? It's definitely worth it if you like full motion video games. Or, hey, look, if you just want to watch it on YouTube, you could go watch it on YouTube. It's actually an interesting watch. I actually wanted to watch it, which, you know, if you go and look at other gameplays of full motion video, sometimes it's like, it's painful to watch how cheesy it is. But this is done really well.
Yeah, it looks like like I see what you were saying about like it gives you the little choices and then like a timer and all that. That's kind of interesting where it's like even though it is full motion and you know people complain about it's cheesy and blah blah blah, like it looks like it could be just a regular movie, you know, as opposed to like the old games back in the 90s, like the old Tex Murphy that was so pixelated. It was like, what in the world is that he's looking at? Like you couldn't make out stuff, I remember.
Yeah, and I think that what really helps with this is how even they do when you select. Because yeah, sometimes they'll do the thing where it's a one shot on the person and you have do I do this or do I do that? But even when you select it, you know, like, I mean, obviously technology helps that. But you know how back in the day, if you played one of those games, you'd have almost that little pause and it would take you out of the movie or whatever you're in because it was like a little delay. This one is seamless. So when you click something, it's like a movie. They cut it well. So it cuts like a really real movie. It doesn't feel like, oh, it's a game, like pick up this and it's like chop, chop. And then you pick up something and it looks all awkward. It flows with the movie. And I think that's why you have 2 choices. It's already filmed, you know, it fits with the narrative of the story. No matter what you do, the story doesn't all of a sudden make less sense. Because that's another thing. Sometimes games mess it up where you're kind of going the right way, or if you go off the beaten path, the story doesn't sound right. Because it's almost like, no, we really would need you to go this way. In this game, it's not like that. Regardless of what you choose, the movie still flows from a narrative standpoint. And I think it does well. And I think the other point is just being out. Like there's so much moving. There's like accidents and stuff like that. So there's a little money put into it. It's not like a sound stage. It doesn't look fake. You know, like the garage, you see all the cars there. You're on the street. There's a chase scene. You know, like I said, there's a car crash. So it looks good. Like you're like, okay, I could buy this as a real movie, not someone just making something cheap and easy in the studio.
Yeah, I think that's gonna come down to probably like really good writing, where they probably thought of like, we want to make it so that, like you said, like really good writing, knowing where the point of like, here's the cut for the edit, and then just seamlessly going on to the next scene. So like doing the end of that scene to the choice, and then just going on, so they knew exactly where to paste the edit in, so that it basically just didn't have any, you know, like you said, it just seamlessly transitioned in, which must have been like, in thinking of that point of view, is like that must have been a pain for the guy writing it, because he had to like think of like, all right, you're gonna choose yes, this is where it's gonna start to go. Okay, you're gonna choose no, this is where it's gonna start to go. And then like as you say, making different choices where you go off the beaten path, keeping the story into like one arc where it all made sense. Because yeah, that was a big thing with those old games of the 90s, is that you'd make this like weird choice, and then you like, it would play the little movie clip, and then you're like, Wait, so how is it that that happened? Because it makes no sense with how whatever else happened.
And that's another thing. I think that unlike some of these other games where you can quote unquote die, end the game early, this game isn't really like that. So I don't want to like give anything away, but it's not so much that there isn't consequences for your decisions. There definitely are. And the thing is, if you start going down the wrong path early, it's going to be impossible to get to the good ending because, like I said, they wrote it so that it matters. That was another thing. And I don't want to just say Telltale all the time, but look, I've been influenced by Telltale. So if I'm giving the wrong credit, you guys can burn me alive for it. But they take the Telltale thing where people remember stuff. And in older full motion video games, they didn't have that. It was basically if you did something wrong, you would die right there, and then that's it. You have to either go back to the beginning, or if they had some kind of save point or something, or it, like I said, it would mess up the game. Here, you're not like if you let's say someone has a gun on you, and it's like fight or surrender. It doesn't necessarily if fight means he shoots you, you're dead. But it's gonna mean it's how they're gonna affect your gameplay later. So you get to keep playing the story, but everyone's gonna treat you differently, and you're not gonna be able to maybe like earn the confidence of somebody, or you may not end up with the type of interaction that you were expecting. Where if you're the surrender guy, they'll act different, they'll treat you different. But like I said, all these full motion video games, you can tell you're heading on a path. Let me not like make this out to be groundbreaking revolutionary. You know where the game is going. So when you watch multiple versions of the game where people choose different things, you start to see, okay, either way, you're going to kind of head down this narrative point. But it has to be like that, especially when you're filming, or else this game would be like, $100, not $12.99 on Steam.
That's interesting where, like you say that. So I wonder if not only they did it kind of like this from a narrative point, but also like it gives you an opportunity of like multiple playthroughs just to see all the different little kind of changes to the storyline, because that's a big thing nowadays is like you want to give gamers a I'm getting the best bang for my buck type of a thing, and if you do the typical, hey, I paid $60 for the game and I played it for 4 hours and I'm done, and it's like, all right, that wasn't worth me paying $60.
Yeah, I think that they definitely do. I think with the $12.99 price, it's less than 1 month of another game. So you can say, oh, that's But if you buy a game $60, whatever, you're gonna expect a lot more. And here, obviously, the game is not that long. Like I said, maybe 30, 40 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But a playthrough could be about that long when you go through everything. And what happens is you get to the point where when you do something, you want to try and see what the character does the other way. Because like I said, the acting's decent. So if you're the kind of person that wants to go along with a heist, it's going to be different. And if you care about stories and how things unfold, you want to go see it. So you'll want to go back and be like, oh, and what's interesting, like I said, it's interesting to watch. Like you're not bored sitting there like, oh my God, this story's stupid. Won't you hurry up and do something? No, it's actually an interesting watch. It's a simple, kind of heist goes wrong type movie, but it's interesting enough that you want to play it and someone else would be interested in watching it with you. So for a $12.99 price point, I mean, seriously,
that's not bad. Yeah.
It's definitely worth picking it up. And what I really hope is that this will lead to more, because right now it has very positive 160 reviews on Steam and people are liking it. And this is a new company that's making it. It's like a little indie company that did it. So it's not like some gigantic company. And I hope that it'll pick up and more people do it. Maybe this will be like the next incarnation of the Telltale type games where they're using live video, which to me is an awesome, incredible prospect.
That's the big thing nowadays is, man, there's some indie companies that are coming up with some amazing games, and they're coming out of like left field, and it's all people that like really liked specific games when they were growing up, and they're like, this is how I want to do it, this is my vision for it, and it's just blowing up now on the scene, which is it's a good day to be a gamer.
Exactly, definitely.